All right, so who is Colie? There you go. If you guys want to follow me or anything like that, I'm not going to be ashamed to plug myself. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, I'm all there. My site, as Nicholas found out, needs updating. Anybody out there with a website that has an updated website, congratulations, you're a minority. So that's my stuff. I'll show it again. These are some of the movies that I've worked on. I always joke at this point, I'm not sure, some of your parents may not have even met one another with some of these movies were coming out. Or you weren't even born. So I don't know anymore. I show this list and I'm like, damn, that was a long time ago. So yeah, this is some of the stuff I've worked on. I'm lucky to have been able to work on these things. And I can go through each one really honestly and tell you what I learned, what I studied, how it's piqued my interest in what I'm interested in today. Like each one of these has that impact on me. So the next couple of slides are kind of what I'm up to these days. Well, I should give you a little bit of a history about how in the world was I even on these movies. So the industry, i.e. the VFX industry, knows me as Colie Wertz, the modeler, and Colie Wertz, the texture painter, and Colie Wertz, the occasional matte painter. He can composite, he can do Photoshop, that kind of stuff. But recently, I've really been trying, and I'll get into how I've kind of been able to do this, and how you can too, is kind of push myself into just getting back to the brass bolts of me sitting down and drawing and painting. All right, so this next image is going to kind of show you what I like to do these days. So this, and all these are on my Instagram. I mean, my Instagram is just, it's shameless, like this is my work. I don't have any pictures of my kid or my girlfriend, and nobody's running around in the backyard with a sprinkler. That is not my Instagram. So my Instagram is nothing but my work. And I'm not really going to go into explaining a lot of these. I'm just going to kind of show you because it's more fun just to look and go, ooh, fun, and you can hit Instagram and read up a little bit. But this is done on an iPad. This is started on an iPhone and finished on an iPad. This is, I don't know, do you guys like Neil Blomkamp? Anybody like Neil Blomkamp? All right, cool. Well, he had these shorts that were on, not like pants, but he had these short movies that were on YouTube, and one of them was set in Vietnam. It's almost like there was a futuristic version of something going on in Vietnam. And I decided I was going to read into that, and I designed a ship that might have been existing like as an X-helicopter, like an X-plane, like an X-helicopter for that. So I don't let anything stop me. I didn't get paid to do any of this stuff. None of this stuff that I'm showing you I got paid to do. I'll tell you when I start getting paid. But this is all stuff I do for fun. At coffee in the morning, that's like number one, coffee. And I hit my coffee and I'm drawing, and nobody bothers me. So this is some modeling that I did, right? So model it, paint it, design it, composite it into a scene. This is kind of what the industry knows me as. But like I said, I'm trying to change. I'm trying to evolve, doing a lot more drawing, a lot more painting. All with knowledge that I gained from tools like Maya and shaders from RenderMan, all these things, all these situations that you see in this image, like specularity and reflection, all that stuff. I'm trying to just draw that now. I mean, I know what it's supposed to look like, so I just try and draw it. So anyway, so how long ago, and this is the answer. This is going to scare some people, all right? When I graduated from college and started, I graduated from college, I was an architect, and I was like, I don't know about this. I was in South Carolina, that's a long way away, and I wasn't really having a good time in the real world because I went to a pretty philosophy-laden school where we were studying strange words like deconstructivism and post-structuralism and reading philosophy and coming up with really cool buildings that had more to do with literature than structure. And by the time I got out and somebody wanted me to sit down and draw a house, I was like, man, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that at all. I want to talk and think and create. And it's like, no, you got to sit here and draw a house. And when you're done with that, there's a white picket fence, and we want you to make sure it's this. And it's like, man, I don't like this. So I moved to LA. I got a lucky break. Somebody called me and said, you want to learn some Photoshop and maybe some 3D? And it was a friend of mine. And I was like, sure, I'll come out. I mean, if I don't like it, I can always go back to architecture, right? It's not going to hurt me to know Photoshop, and I hear Photoshop's kind of cool. This was, you can date yourself by what version of Photoshop you started on. I started in Photoshop 3, and that is when they introduced layers. So, I'm not kidding. Everybody around me at work was like, man, 2 weeks ago, we were working in 2.8, and 2.8 only had channels. Dude, you got layers. So this is where I started. But now the 3D world was a little bit more advanced. So down in LA, there's this place called Art Center. And Art Center is where Silicon Graphics, which you see up on this screen, the Silicon Graphics Indigo 2 Power Extreme. That was like, that was the first graphics accelerated workstation. And that thing was probably 12, 13 grand just to sit behind one of those things, 13 grand. And we're talking about, young people that have to not only be able to, use Linux, or IRIX, I think was running on those things, but be able to use Alias or Wavefront software at the time, which, is another $12,000, $13,000. So you really, to get into the visual effects industry back then, you couldn't afford, nobody coming right out of school could afford to sit down or come up with that kind of cash. So you had to sit down at a company like ILM, or you had to be able to sit down at a company like Digital Domain. Those were the two biggies. And you sit down and you are already ready to work. So the only way you could really get a job is if you were a computer specialist out here already, or you were a graduate of, say, Art Center, which was being subsidized by General Motors for car design, which is what Alias was really good for. I don't want to bore you guys too much with this, but what I'm trying to get to is that you had to be lucky as all get out to get into the industry. Because when you're sitting behind $20,000 of equipment, you have to be productive right out of the gate. So that was a tough one. So I get to LA and I'm like, man, what's all of this 3D stuff? Well, it didn't really work out that well. You couldn't get your hands on one of these boxes. So I started learning some not so well respected stuff on the Mac, like After Effects and some Photoshop, and Form Z, which is a solid modeler, and Electric Image, which was rendering and animation. Those 4 pieces of software turned me into a generalist, and I was doing this at night in LA. I was young, I was in my 20s, so I had all kinds of energy, and I was staying up all night learning this stuff. So that's how I kind of got my start in the industry. I entered a contest. I designed a spaceship. Someone at ILM saw it, was a judge in a contest. They hired me. I got to sit behind one of these boxes because I learned a different piece of software. So I was really excited about this. I was like, man, I got to take this. I didn't have any aspiration to work at ILM, but I was like, well, I got to take this. This sounds too good. These boxes are the boxes that we need to be sitting behind, I'm told. So I took the job, and I haven't looked back. I had a really good time in VFX. So moving forward, damn, I got to go faster than this. The cost of entry now to do stuff is, thanks to Dell, other companies, less than $5,000. And I do so much of my work now on my phone with my finger sketching that I would debate that you can do it for under $1,000 and have your equipment pay for itself and make a living. So you can learn, and I know your professors, maybe they do or they don't tell you, but if you have questions and you don't know the answer to it, you just go on YouTube and somebody's probably got an answer. And if you need reference, Pinterest is awesome. Pinterest is unbelievable. If I had Pinterest when I was in your shoes, I don't know what I would do. I know I wouldn't be looking at it the way I'm looking at it now because I remember how hard it was to find reference of anything when I was growing up. World Book Encyclopedia. I'm throwing you a curve, but that's what we used. So my world shrank. So this bag that I have, if it won't fit in here, I don't really use it. So that's a big difference from where I once was, where I had to sit behind the $20,000 machine, right? So a pack of Post-its definitely fits in there. So I'll sit down at coffee and sketch, free reign. This is no money involved here. This is me having a good time with a proper cup. And then I take a picture of it because I got my scanner with me everywhere I go, right? Like this, right? High res. Seriously, that's all it takes. Take a picture of it, and I do finger painting in Procreate over the top of that. Procreate's, I think, $10 now. Be careful. Be careful. That's 2 cups of good coffee. So you can definitely get a lot done on your mobile devices. Now, I'll go a little bit deeper into this as we go forward, but this was just kind of a study in can I create kind of maybe a morning or late afternoon scene, and that's how far that went, and I just pushed, nothing's precious. There's something about working on your phone that takes the preciousness of having to sit down in front of the computer and scoot under the table and make sure you're just right, and is my lamp turned right, and all that stuff. There's something about holding a phone that makes everything just, or your iPad, is just, you can try it, and if you screw up, you just double tap it, undo, don't worry about it. Can I work in the line at Starbucks? That's one of my big questions now. If I'm in a line, can I work? Yeah, I can now. So that's appealing to me because it takes away the preciousness of having to sit behind a desk and work. So you're already in the maze. This is like step 1. Get in the maze. So you're the maze being, well, what am I going to do next? So if you don't know, the first thing you do is you just start looking around, right? You sniff, you get your education, or you get some kind of an idea of what else is out there. This is a great place to do it. Go to school. This is what I did in school. When I graduated, I did not know how to turn on a computer. I'm serious. They just weren't, we didn't need them. All my drawings were done on Mylar, and all my models were built out of chipboard, which is, if you go to a blueprint company, they have these big, sheets that they use to keep the paper from getting bent. And we would beg, and they would give us free chipboard. And this is what I made my models out of. Second step, develop your fundamentals. And like I tell my kid, right now she's playing volleyball, and she's 13, and for the last 3 years she's been building up her fundamentals. If you do not have good fundamentals, you're not going to go back to them. And you're always honing your fundamentals, right? You learn how to sketch. You learn how to draw a box. Draw a box looking down. Draw a box looking up. Study the reflections in a car. Take a picture with your phone. Stuff like that. What is a triad? What is a good complement to this color? What are the morning colors? What are the evening colors? Things like that. That kind of stuff you can continually record and get better at with your phones. And I'm assuming everybody in here's got a phone, right? Kinda. All right. So here it is. This is one of the kits that I keep in my bag. It's a sketchbook, barely. It's like this big, And I keep a little, nerd pouch. It's about the size of this microphone, stuffed down in the bag, and it's got these tools in it. And I limit myself to this stuff. I mean, the fewer tools I have to work with, the less time I'm going to go, should it be this 7% gray or should it be this 8% gray? I don't do that. I just bear down less hard. I try not to have fuss when I work now. I don't like fuss. So this is kind of a good example of just sketch, get a feel for it. At this point, like I say, it's not precious. I'll take a picture of it, and maybe I'll just start painting in Procreate over the top of it on my phone. When they call my name at Starbucks, I know my coffee's ready, and I just move out of the way, put the phone in my pocket, don't have to shut anything down. It automatically turns off. It knows what to do. And then I go sit down, and I continue sketching. Study the world around you. This is a dork paradise. I went to Pima Air Museum in Tucson for a vacation, and everybody's like, "You went to Tucson for a vacation? What were you thinking, dude?" And then all I wanted to do is go to this air museum and take pictures of airplanes. One of my favorite airplanes ever is the SR-71 Blackbird, and there's one there because that airplane was like 50 years ahead of itself. I mean, there's proof that aliens existed is in that plane. So I wanted to touch it and feel it and smell it and all that kind of stuff. So I went, and it was a nerd's paradise. And I took all these pictures, and this is like 5 years ago. I'm still using this reference today. You know, if I need to know how some strange landing gear is going to pivot, I know where to start. Somebody else has done it, you know, back in the 1970s on a MiG, you know, so there it is. And like I said, it just translates into some of the work that I do. So this is still not paid. I just do it on the weekend, you know, give myself a time limit, continue to have fun, i.e. don't work all night, but do it and see what I can come up with. So, you know, that's the kind of stuff. Learn to criticize and take criticism, not take it personally. Oh my God, growing up in the South and learning how to take criticism is one of the hardest things I have ever had to do. Is anybody here from the South? Okay, that's kind of the South. It's not the deep South. There's only one. Oh, anyway, you're right. Georgia, there you get it. Texas counts because they think very similar to us. But everybody out here seems to think that the South stops at Texas, and then they forget about the other half of the country. So it's kind of funny. But anyway, criticism, I took criticism personally. Oh my God, I'd throw my work out there in architecture school, and I felt like everything that they were saying about my idea was about me. And that wasn't the case. The whole point was for them to criticize my work. And I didn't know how to take that. It was really difficult, really difficult. Even when I got out here, I was not prepared for, hey, I don't like this. It doesn't mean that they don't like you. It just means that they don't like what they're seeing, you know. So that was kind of the beginning of that. I learned a lesson. I grew up a little bit. I didn't know, you know. Nobody trained me how to take criticism. I don't know if they train you here, but my God, any design school, if you're not learning how to not take it personally, that's something you got to do. So this is from After Earth, and I vomited out sketch after sketch after sketch after sketch for something. And the ones on top, you can see how different they are. I mean, they wanted different. So I start vomiting the stuff out. They go, yeah, we kind of like the one on the upper left. And so I said, okay, well, let me build a quick model of it. I'm going to give myself a few hours and bang this out. So I banged that out. And they were like, yeah, we like the way. Can we develop it a little bit more? So, oh, by the way, I was getting paid for this. So, so that's important. So I did a quick paint over of it, and you know, the director signed off on it. Boom! It totally got cut from the movie, but what doesn't? And but that's just an example of how, you know, you can't let no. Oh yes, we like that one. Get in your way. You know, don't let the no's get in the way, because eventually you'll hit the mark. So step out of your comfort zone. It's kind of what I'm talking about now. What I'm up to now is like I move out of modeling and get back to what I'm pretty good at sketching. So I want to really develop, like, how do I get into sketching more? How do I give my work a little bit more life? So I kind of kit bashed a little model together, and now I'm kind of trying to do more images instead of like in this image. I'm going to bounce around. Instead of this image in front of a big gray area, got no life or story. It's got a little bit of a life and story. This is Hascorp. You should, yeah, Hascorp. And the area behind it, now you're not going to know fully what's going on, but the area behind it is biotech, right, which is popular here. And every now and again they have a spill, right? They have a little issue. Well, you call Hascorp, and Hascorp comes and takes care of the problem. They're like the garbage company, a really high-tech garbage company. So if I were to do another image, you know, I've got my little story. So didn't get paid for this, all fun. So, but I kind of got to create a little mini world, and that's fun. That's a lot of fun. So to kind of go over what I just talked about, get in a maze, develop your fundamentals, study the world around you, give, receive constructive criticism, and get out of your comfort zone. Repeat as needed. Man, I started off as an architect, and I wanted to be a doctor before that. So, you know, this doesn't quit. I'm going to give you some examples now of sort of where what I like doing more than anything, again, is get a cup of coffee, sit down, sketch, take a picture of it, paint over it, investigate. So this is a sketch progression of, I don't know, some walker. I don't know. It started on a Post-it note, pencil. I like pencil too. Pencil's fun. Took a snapshot of it on my phone and then did a paint over of it on my phone. I think I may have pulled in some images of tanks in World War II for lighting and used that as my basis for study. So I have an opportunity to just crank out a shape and then throw it in a lighting environment and see if I can tell a tiny little story with it. You know, all on my phone. So another example, hacked together a little sketch, came up with a little story behind it. You know, this is probably a big ship that comes into, the gray thing is a big ship that comes into the atmosphere. Put a family of 20 or whatever on this little shuttle. They go and explore, come dock back up, leave the atmosphere. Another little sketch. Notice, I mean, sketches they're just blue pencil. I think they're like 80 cents. And then like a ballpoint pen, like whatever, Bic, nothing fancy. Statler, no thanks. You know, just a ballpoint pen. It's almost like the cheaper the better. So iPhone, maybe a little bit of iPad on this one for some more detail. Again, just a little sketchbook, iPad, paint over, sketchbook, iPad, paint over. So it's like an ambulance. I thought this might be an ambulance on top of a building. So we already started kind of talking about making a little story for your stuff. So you kind of see I'm not going to tell you how to do anything in here, in this forum. I'm just going to tell you how I approach stuff, because you're going to get to pick whatever piece of software you use or medium you choose to get your idea down. Once you get your idea down, how you want to deliver that idea or get that idea across is really up to you. And I think that's really where I think you guys are extremely fortunate, where you're coming into an era where, especially right now, where you also have VR at your disposal. So you not only can you build, design a space, build a model or a spaceship, you can actually put someone in it and let them sort of experience what's going on with Unreal and VR. It's a cool time. It is a really cool time if you want people to experience whatever it is you're creating. But this is an example of I kind of wish I had VR for this one. But I was asked to contribute to a book called Nothing But Mech, and I decided to kind of go back in history, and I really, as Nick said, I'm a big plane junkie. So I went back to World War II and I started looking at all of the experimental. The Germans had a lot of experimental craft that never really they find occasionally, like some shed, like, oh my God, look what they were doing in here, and you maybe they found a sub that was getting like a sub drone. Drones are popular now, so why not a sub drone? So a sub drone from that era. First thing you do, you go and start researching stuff from that era, and I was looking at divers and torpedoes and mini subs and how do you launch something off of a boat, because this thing's going to probably get launched off of a boat or maybe drop from a plane. So you can see from this image, I started toying around with the idea of this thing getting launched off the side of a boat on the same thing that airplanes were raised up on. And I kind of modified it and it launches and kind of skims above the water, and there's nobody in it. It's just a drone. The engines are going to get completely wasted the minute that it hits the water, but that's okay because it's got a propeller on the back. So I built a model of it, and this is how they wheel them around on the ship. Because if you have these things and you got 10 of them, and the whole point of these things is if there's a minefield out there near, and they need to get through it, the ships, then they launch these things, and then they control them and let them somehow. And then they get through the minefield, and then now you know how to get through. Or they go and they blow up the mines, and now they got a clear path. You know, they just run into them, or they launch these torpedoes. But obviously this thing was inspired by a manta ray. So, and the Messerschmitt engines are from like an ME-22, whatever. So the scale was determined by real torpedoes from that era. So I went and I looked up the dimensions of a torpedo, and that's how I came up with my size. So I picked like my main determinant. So here they are. The wings fold up so that they don't take up so much space on the ship. And that's the back. That's the propeller is inside that housing. And so I start rendering stuff out, and I maybe give it a little bit of a life. I start playing around with, well, what do the mines look like? I don't know, but why don't I go into, I don't know, Keyshot. You guys know what Keyshot is, anybody? Okay, and he was a renderer. And I'm like, well, I could learn a little bit about a new shader. And so I did some research on a shader that looks like it's wasting away. So I built that little mine and let that shader. I learned a little bit that night. Wanted to learn a little bit more about Mari, which is a painting program. So I did a lot of my paint work in Mari on this thing, laid out the UVs, and then I did research on dazzle paint, which is a form of camouflage that was popular early in the war. So I found a color palette and a paint scheme that looked appropriate for that time, and there you go. So, you know, that was some of the stuff I was doing at night. You know, there they are on the ship. You can see in the crop up here on the. I found that online somewhere. I'm like, wow, it'd be really cool to throw those little guys in a little thing like that, and they just raise up and they're ready to go. So this is looking down on them, unfolded. This is how they load the torpedoes. So I just went to town, just kept reading into it and reading into it and reading into it. Then this is also kind of when this is a few years ago, so this is kind of when I'm starting to kind of trying to tell a story. I wasn't very good at it, but this thing is coming down from the heavens, and it's going to go into the water and probably blow up that aircraft carrier. But I don't think this is very successful, but I think I was more concerned about showing people, look what I painted, look at my paint job. I think these are some of the images that were in the book. And this is another shot that I did right before it goes into splashdown mode, which I had kind of done a sketch of it on my iPhone prior to that. Mining in Nigeria. Why not? So picture of me, a giant mining platform that hovers above the plains of Nigeria, and then of course you need a vehicle to move some of this stuff around once you get it mined. So again, a model sketch, the back of it. I think this was done for 3D Total. They wanted me to come up with a sci-fi image, so I went to a concrete mixing or a rock. I don't know the exact name of it. Anyway, I took a picture there of some industrial stuff, added my own model stuff to it, and modeled this bike, and then took a picture of myself with similar lighting and just kind of comped it all together. So, robot High in Shanghai, like, why not? Bet on them. Some of the robots that would be there. And then, this was fun. I learned a lot about High. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. It's like Spanish game that if you go to, I think it's dying out, but it was in Miami for a long time. And these people would have these big hooks on their hands, kind of like Tron. You throw this ball, it goes about 150 miles an hour, and it hits this wall, and you bet on who's going to win the game. And so I did a bunch of research on that. It's like, well, why not? You know, maybe in Shanghai they have, they're able to bet on these robots playing this game, and I called it Shanghai Lie. I don't know. I'll be here all night. Some more robots that I sketched just for fun. You know, like I said, I don't make it precious. I think I started this one on that guy in a sketchbook, and I didn't have enough room, so I was like, well, I'm not really going to worry about that. I'll just take a picture of it and keep drawing down the page. You know, just throw away the notion of precious. So I was going to make a break from the industry, so I went into 3D printing in the area, not too far from here, actually. So this company was asking me to help them promote some of their products or some of their printers and just show us what you can do. So I learned that 3D printing is all about how to engineer something to where it doesn't break. But the only way you're going to know if something breaks or doesn't break is to have it break, and you just keep going until it doesn't break. If you build it and it doesn't break, then, and we call these things parts. Everything's a part in 3D printing. I'm going to print this part. I'm going to grow this part. So I tried to grow the Enterprise, and it broke. And it broke right there. You can totally see where it snapped. So this is kind of cool. So it's cool to me because anytime anything broke, you could tell. If you over-engineer it, it's not going to break, but it's going to cost more to ship, you know. So too much material costs more to ship. Not as many people are going to buy it. So what I learned is if you have where two things meet, you might need something to not have all the force hit at one spot. So the way and the reason that you see things with nice curves is that it's distributing the force around that area to a greater area. And I wouldn't have thought of that. I mean, the only way I figured that out, and this is another one of those things, like, God, if I'd had that in school, I actually might have cared about physics, you know, or done more math. But, you know, yeah, I learned through experience, and this is how it worked for me. So this is kind of how that image that I initially showed, this is how I got there, how I got to the final design. A lot of fun. I modeled everything. And, you know, I'm continuing to learn as I go. This project is something that I banged out for a 3D print as well. I called it The Night Shrike, had a nice little story about it. It was going to be a nighttime reconnaissance plane like the SR-71, because I think I told you I like that thing, and did a bunch of paintings, and here the dudes are getting it ready to go on its mission, and I built it as I was modeling so that it could be printed, and yes, failure. Nothing better. So it broke. It was too heavy. It printed in one material. It didn't print in the other material. So I adjusted it, and it printed. So that's an iPad. So that thing's sitting on an iPad. It's tiny and so detailed. So detailed. There's some areas on that thing where I actually modeled a knot in a cable, and it printed the knot in the cable. And this thing's only this big, so I'm there with a magnifying glass going, I cannot believe this. So this is like $100,000, $200,000 printers made for, you know, dental work, and I'm sending a spaceship through, you know. So you can tell the technicians are going, what in the hell is that? Like, that is not a tooth. I'm like, you are so right. And so, but I had a really good time, and I promoted the hell out of it, and they enjoyed it, and they started taking these little things to shows. And they're like, hey, by the way, you don't have to just print teeth with this thing. So, who knew? So, again, another little project that I did. I called it the Paper Wasp. I was for a magazine article that I had done, and I built it in a way that I could print it, and you could print in color. Some of these printers are designed. Companies like Nike If they need to, if they want to see how people react to a certain shoe, they need to be able to, say, print the bottom of it and the top of it or whatever and give it to an executive and say, hey, what do you think? Well, you can print like 50 of these things on the right printer overnight, and people kind of go, oh, yeah, I like the way that shoe feels when I see it on the wall when I walk into Foot Locker. So 3D printing, I learned so much about marketing and stuff like that inside of 3D printing. I got hired by a game company to come up with a tank. So I designed this Russian tank for them, prepped it for print, printed it. Things like this big. It's like a $7,000 or $8,000 print. But because I worked at that company, they were like, yeah, we got some extra material if you want to print that tank tonight. And I was like, yes. So we printed it, and it's pretty crazy, man, the stuff that translates into the prints. I mean, you have to model it a certain way, but it totally works. Now, yes, I've worked on a few films. As I told you, I was just finally going to get around to that. But this is one of my favorite. I think I'll show you my favorite. So I decided there was a show called Avengers. I can't remember which one this was. Help me. Yeah, I can't remember. I don't know if it was it wasn't Infinity War. Anyway, Civil War. Ant-Man goes into Iron Man's suit. So this is cool because this has to do with architecture. So I'm like, all right, well, he basically goes into this suit. He's going to be in a city of a very specific aesthetic. So Tony, what is the aesthetic of the interior of Iron Man's armor? And I think they had done a little bit of work on Yellow Jacket, or maybe Ant-Man had gone into somebody else's armor the movie before. Anyway, they were showing me all this stuff, and I was going, oh my God. But they said, hey, we haven't got any designs for this stuff. We need it. What are you doing over Christmas? And I was like, I guess I'm working. So and they paid me. So yet again, good stuff. Get paid. So these are shots from the movie. So I just pull them down, and but you can. I'll walk through these images, but everything kind of had to be designed. I mean, you don't just paint all this stuff because all the parallax and whatnot. And it had to be kind of specific to Tony Stark. So we had all we know about Tony Stark is that he's got this shiny iron outfit, and he changes it every movie, and he's got a lot of money. But what do the innards look like? So, and I'm kind of flipping through, this, it's like a minefield of architectural elements. Because when you start thinking about it, he's walking through a city, So, look at that. That's like running through a doorway. So all of a sudden, things that are this big become doorways. So this is what the inside of his sleeve might look like, if you can imagine putting your hand inside a sleeve. So I kind of designed a lot of this. So again, just looking online, like, what's high tech? Is this appropriate high tech? What's appropriate? What's inappropriate for the look? So started coming up with all these shapes. Used everything I can to kind of get an idea across, like bump mapping. So I thought these might be, medium-sized building blocks. So I started thinking about all these things like Legos, right? So you start making Legos, you start putting depth of field. Any photographers in here, it's all good. Things automatically start looking big with depth of field. How do you lead someone's eye down a corridor? You make a long piece, and you start looking down it. You can lead people. What do the cables look like? What's an appropriate looking cable? What's an appropriate looking connection? This kind of was the start of the hero cable. So I went on, painted it. I put serial numbers on every single piece because he would have 3D printed all this stuff in metal. And so if it failed, he goes out on a flight, his left boot, something on it doesn't work. He's going to come back, he's going to troubleshoot it, he's got to find the right part. And the only way to find that right part is to have a serial number on it. So I don't know if you guys can see the serial numbers on each plate, but it was great because you're turning small things into gigantic things, and it was totally legit. little halon emitters to put fires out whenever they would happen inside of his suit. Light source. Something's got to create light down in there, so we came up with some kind of thing that created light. And then these were some little missiles that he might be using. Again, the fact that we're going head to tail on the bottom and tail to head on the top just kind of gives you a rhythm. You take these three, you move them down, all of a sudden you've got like a colonnade of repetitive shapes, and it starts looking, oh, cool, man, it might be nice to go down there. So as Ant-Man goes along his journey inside of Iron Man, you kind of get a feel of what this city of Stark technology looks like. So that was like one of the most fun little, I don't want to say Christmases I've ever had, but it was definitely a fun event kind of doing this. And I think I listened to football every day at work, so it was no big deal. And Clemson was doing well. I think this year they won the national championship. I digress. So I got to work on some Star Wars movies. I worked on 8. I did a lot of paint work on 8. And then this is for Rogue One, the U-Wing. I got to bash out some designs for the U-Wing. This one didn't get picked. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the design process of that thing or not, but I don't know why you would be. But Ryan Church, I got to work with Ryan Church on the U-Wing, and I had a blast. He cranks out stuff left and right, so I helped develop that with him. But I think that the director, Gareth Edwards, and Ryan and myself, I must have modeled 20 U-Wings for really well-detailed models, and just went through changes as the director wanted changes. So, but that's what you get paid to do. So it's kind of fun, and you get better. And you get to research things like, why do flaps come up and down? Why would it do this in space? Why would it? What's legit? What's not legit in the Star Wars world? So you learn all about that. You help people figure out whether they're going to build a set. How much does this cost? I don't know. We're going to build it in Tunisia? I'm not sure. What kind of scale are we talking about? I don't know. We need to look and see what size things are so we can decide whether we're going to spend the money. Colie, go build it. Let's figure out the actual square footage that we need. Okay, so things like this. So this, tells a little bit of a story, but more than anything else, when it's modeled, set designers, prop designers, stuff like that, guys like that, they can go in and kind of pick out what they'll build, what they won't build, what's going to be CG, what's going to be, practical. So, same here. Design some luggage. Are we going to, prop designers can bid on this? X-Wing, yeah, that's an X-Wing. So that's about it for the Star Wars stuff. As you can imagine, it's a little bit difficult to show a lot of Star Wars stuff. Lucas is and Disney now is pretty tight on what they let go, and they hold on to concepts because they might want to use it further down the road. So this is done on my iPhone. I'm kind of winding up here so we can ask questions, but iPhone sketch. I took a picture out of my, I flew from London, and for the first, I'm not well traveled. I've been to Egypt and Thailand, Mexico, and London. That's about it, and a lot of that's recent. I'm from the South. This is what happens. So I was flying back from London, and my flight tracked the sun. It was like 5 o'clock the whole trip. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with golden hour, but that's like having 12 hours of golden hour. So we're flying over the coolest stuff, and I'm just basically sitting there filling my phone up with stuff. So I took a picture, and I liked it, and I just started, I got tired of taking pictures of perfect clouds and just did a finger paint of these ships flying. And I just dig this one because it really just shows that no matter where you are, you take a snapshot, you give yourself freedom. Obviously I'm not going to pull up. I was trying to get comfortable. I'm not going to pull out the fold down thing and get my computer set up. No. Chill, get me a coffee, hang out, and sketch. So I did this on the plane, and I'd like to thank you guys very much for coming on a Friday night. I cannot believe you guys came. Thank you.